welcome to Do You Believe tonight on livesci-fi.tv. And tonight we have a great show for you. It's on astral projection. And my guest tonight is Dr. Steve G. Jones. Steve, thank you so much for joining me tonight.
Oh, my pleasure. Great to be here.
Steve, can you give the viewers some information about yourself, please?
Well, sure. I've been practicing hypnotherapy since the 1980s. I started my interest in hypnosis when I was in high school. I started hypnotizing my friends. I got a book on hypnosis, and soon the athletes came to me wanting to, exercise more efficiently. The smart kids came to me wanting to study more efficiently. And all these years later, it's the same thing I was doing back then in the 80s in high school, except now the smart kids are NASA and the athletes are the Dodgers.
Now, Steve, tonight we are very interested in astral projection, but also because there was a movie that came out last year, Insidious. I don't know if you've seen the movie, and I don't know if the viewers out there have seen the movie, but I want to talk a little about this movie and what happened in it, and then let me just give you and the viewers just a little bit synopsis about the movie. It was about this family who moved into a house, and it was haunted. They decided to leave this house and move to another house, and that house was haunted because whatever was over in the first house followed them to the second house. And they had a child, an 8-year-old boy, and he had gone up into the attic and in the first house, and he saw something that caused him to go into a coma. And they had left this house, gone to the second house. Whatever was there followed them. He was still in this coma when they moved into the second haunted house. The mother was seeing things in this house, and the father did believe her that this house was haunted. There was no medical reason for this boy to be in this coma. And they had a friend that was a psychic. And the psychic came over and said, the house isn't haunted, it's your son that's haunted. And they discovered that the boy left his body. He went into an astral projection unwillingly, and he had left his body, and he couldn't get back. And the father had realized that he had suppressed his abilities to astral project. And he needed to go into this other astral realm to bring his son back. And also, the son had inherited his ability to astral project. So, Steve, my question to you is, first of all, what is astral projection?
Well, astral projection is just a normal process where your soul leaves your body. If you think of it like a driver in a car, your soul is the driver, that's you, the actual person, and your body is the car. So you leave the car. In cases of astral projection, it usually happens subconsciously when you're sleeping at night, but you can, through training, learn to do it consciously as well.
All right, so in this movie, Insidious, the boy left his body, but he did it unwillingly. He didn't know that he had done that. Is that possible? Could that really happen?
Well, I believe anything's possible. It's not very likely. Now, a lot of times people will have an experience like that when they have surgery. They'll report what the surgeon did or what some people did in the room, where that their body should not have been able to see what was going on in that part of the room. Yet after the surgery, they report what happened because their astral body was viewing it. So you can and you do leave your body without realizing it. Many times you do it when you sleep at night, and as I mentioned, people do it during surgery. Sometimes people do it during brief naps. You're saying in the movie he was forcibly removed from his body by an entity or something?
He had seen an entity in the attic, which caused him to go into a coma. So I'm assuming he had left his body.
Okay. Well, we've got a lot of creative liberties being taken there by Hollywood, which is, of course, to be expected. The part of that reality. Let's see, going into a coma, no. Being forced out of your body. Sometimes there are entities in the astral world which, although they wouldn't force you out of your body, sometimes they will try to inhabit your body once you are out. And I've encountered this firsthand when I first got involved in the 80s, starting to get out and encountering this, a presence. It's easy to avoid that. You just surround yourself with protective light before you do anything. But as far as just going along your day and being pulled out of your body, I'm going to go with no on that one.
Okay. Now, is astral projection inherited, or is it a natural phenomena?
Well, again, we have a relic from Hollywood. It's nice when they can, create a story like that, like the butterfly effect. Completely fictitious, but the guy had inherited the ability to time travel. So astral projection is no more inherited than time travel is. We've got to understand we have a spiritual lineage and we have a physical lineage. So your physical and your spiritual lineage are different. You don't necessarily descend from the ancestors that you have in your physical body. For example, you have grandparents and great-grandparents and so forth. Well, those are your physical genetic relatives. Your spiritual relatives would be any number of people, because you don't have to stay in the same lineage. So this concept of inheriting something spiritual doesn't really translate into reality because of that.
In astral projection, is there a dark side to this?
Yes, there's luckily there's a dark and light side to everything. There's a good and bad, if you will, positive and negative, if you want to look at it that way. And that's a reality. If it weren't for quote unquote bad things, we wouldn't know what a quote unquote good thing was. So just as with everything else you might potentially experience in the world, in the astral world, there are entities that really don't have your best interest in mind.
So on the other, when you astral project, you can run into what kind of dark entities are these?
Well, they can be all sorts of things. I mean, you have people when they sleep, they astral project. So it could be just a person astral projecting, and not even knowing it. Sometimes there's people with bad intentions who actually think they're dreaming, but they're astral projecting. Think of it like a sleepwalker with a bad attitude, going around doing things, not realizing quite what they're doing and not having the best intentions. There are also entities called elementals, which would be similar to cats and dogs in the three-dimensional world. They're of a lesser intelligence. They don't really mean any harm. They're just kind of looking out for themselves. But just as a dog in your everyday life, if you interact with it and it's not a friendly dog, you may pay the price. So there are things like that and situations like that in the astral world.
Does lucid dreaming have any connection to astral projection?
Not necessarily, and that's a question I get all the time. Lucid dreaming is just being aware that you're dreaming. So by definition, a lucid dream is just a dream. You're just imagining things with your eyes closed. That's what a dream is. So in a lucid dream, it's interesting because you become aware that you're dreaming. And since you seem to be a movie buff, for those who haven't seen it, the movie Waking Life is a great movie for lucid dreaming. It actually gives a play-by-play how-to manual to lucid dream and to figure out if you're lucid dreaming. One of the things I recommend is in the movie they recommend this, if you think you're in a lucid dream, try turning on and off a light switch and see if the lights behave like they should. Chances are if you're in a lucid dream, they won't behave like they should. They won't react at all in most cases. So again, that's the movie Waking Life, great movie. But lucid dreaming is just your imagination. Astral projection is an actual experience where your soul has left your body.
Your soul leaves your body. Okay.
Right.
What are the signs that somebody is undergoing astral projection?
Well, if you're looking for signs, as a doctor would look at a patient, if you're looking at someone's body and trying to figure out if they're astral projecting or not, I don't think you'll find any. But you will feel some symptoms when you're astral projecting, things that you will detect, feelings that you will have. For example, your body will feel like it's energy. Also, this ability to fly, which I imagine most people don't normally have, suddenly you'll be able to fly. That's a really good indication that you're astral projecting. Of course, we need to be careful that we don't confuse it with lucid dreaming, because in a lucid dream you can also fly. You realize you're dreaming and you say, "Hey, well, I'm dreaming. I'm Superman. I'm going to fly around," and you can do that in a dream. Of course, you can imagine yourself doing it now, and you can do it in a dream as well.
But in
the astral world,
go ahead.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
Okay, but the way to test for this is have someone write something in their bedroom that you wouldn't have access to, and leave it on their dresser, a symbol or a sign or a number, and you go ahead and astral project, go to their bedroom, look at it, and tell them the next day what it is, and see if they agree, see if they validate that. That's a great way to know if you're astral projecting.
Now, I don't know anybody who has ever had that experience. Is it very common that you can astral project?
Oh, yes, absolutely. In fact, you probably don't know anyone who hasn't had that experience. They probably just haven't talked about it. Probably if you start asking around, you'll find out lots of people have had these dreams of falling and flying. A lot of times those dreams are actual unconscious astral projection experiences. And then once they are able to control it consciously, it becomes a lot more interesting. Then they can take control of it and go where they want to go.
All right, so if somebody had an astral projection experience, they don't know it, and then they wake up the next morning, say, and they start thinking about it, how would they know that they really had that experience, though? I mean, they're in their dream, they may think, oh, I went to this other country and I visited people. Is that a dream or is that astral projection?
Well, the only way that I know of is the way that I explained, where you have something that you're going to see that someone can validate for you whether or not you saw it correctly or not, something that you wouldn't have access to in your physical body. For example, someone writing something down on their dresser in their bedroom, putting it there, you check it out in your astral body, tell them the next day. That should pretty well verify whether you're dreaming or imagining. Now, as far as random experiences, let's say, for example, you go to bed tonight, you wake up tomorrow, and you've had a dream about going to Egypt, and you're wondering, well, was that astral projection or not? It's going to be really difficult to tell. I don't know of a way for you to know that, except in an interview I did a few days ago, the host was telling me that she went to Skylab, which was, some international, perhaps the International Space Station, something like that. Mm-hmm. And she was seeing some real-time thing that was happening and going wrong. She thought it was a dream. The next day, she woke up, went about her day, and heard in the news that at that space station, they had a major incident, and they described it in the way that she had seen it the night before.
Oh, my God. Oh, gosh. Well, okay, Steve, what are the good and bad effects of going out of one's body and traveling into the astral realm?
Well, if we want to look at it in terms of good and bad, we would say, the way I would, of course, those are, opinions, but the things I would classify as good would be the ability to go anywhere you want, anytime you want. The ability to access what we call the Akashic records, records of things that have happened and things that are potentially going to happen. The ability to, save a lot on airfare if you're into travel. You got to admit, you travel for free when you travel in the astral world. Now, the downside would be the learning curve. Sometimes, some people it takes a time to learn it, to master it, and they get a little frustrated. They get a body part out and it goes back in. They get all the way out, they go back in. They get scared and they go back in. Get back in their body. Mm-hmm. So the downside can be the frustration that sometimes comes along with it. I'm not able to think of any other downside. I think it's got a lot to offer.
So then what would be the benefits of astral projection?
Well, as I mentioned, travel anywhere, free. No need to pay airfare anymore. Of course, you're not able to take any luggage with you, or you won't be able to take your iPhone to take pictures. But you'll be able to see a lot of things. and you'll be able to do that anytime you want. And also, as I mentioned, accessing the Akashic records, the record of everything that's happened and everything that potentially will happen.
Are there any limits on things that you can do, or limits on your experiences during astral projection?
Just like anything else, there are limits, but they're based on people. They're based on individuals. I have limits as to how far I can run at one time, but that's my fault. That's my fault for not training more for distance running. I have limits on, how far I can see, but that's a physical limitation. That's based on physiological genetics. So there are limitations, just like with anything else. But as far as the level of mastery that you can attain, it's much higher than in the physical world. There's a whole religion built around astral projection called Ekankar, which I'm not a part of, but I went to one of their meetings in the 80s, and they've written books about realms you can go to beyond this physical realm when you're astral projecting in higher and higher realms. So even when you think you've seen it all, there's still more to see.
Is there a way to develop this ability?
Well, I think my program is the best way. The 18-hour program that I've developed, I would say that's the best. But of course I'm going to say that because I developed the program. Any way that you can train with a master at this, meaning someone who's able to do it, able to teach it, that would be great. Any program you can get your hands on or any group you can study with, that would be the best, because as I mentioned, the frustration level tends to run a little high at the beginning because people have a little bit of success and then they go back, a little bit of more success and they go back. So it's a matter of sticking with it. So some kind of support group or a program can be very helpful.
So can you teach yourself how to astral project?
You can, but I don't recommend that. I mean, theoretically, you could teach yourself how to fly a plane, but it probably wouldn't go so well. You should have someone teaching you how to do it. Now, unlike flying a plane, astral projection is natural, but controlling it consciously is not something that people find that comes naturally. They need to learn that. It's a skill. So having a coach or a program is going to be extremely valuable.
All right. Well, if somebody comes to you to learn how to astral project, and they do so, how do they know they can come back into their body?
Well, you're attached by the silver cord, which attaches from the umbilicus of the person, their belly button, to the umbilicus area of the astral body. So you naturally go back to your astral body.
But
we teach that in the program on day one.
Has it ever happened? I mean, is there a possibility that you can't get back for some reason? I mean, there's got to be something that's pulling you back in, but also I don't see. There also could be a possibility that you can't come back.
Well,
that could happen.
In the realm of what's possible, I will grant you that anything's possible. I would never use the word impossible, but I will say that I've been doing this since the early 80s, and I have yet to either see that happen or to hear of any cases of that happening. I'm not saying it's impossible. I'm just saying I have not encountered it.
Yeah, that's the only thing that scares me. Now, suppose somebody astral projects and they don't want to come back. Can they stay out there forever?
No, unfortunately not. The only time you get to do that is when you pass away, when you leave this physical body. So, we're all heading down that road. Eventually we'll get there, so I wouldn't rush it at all. The only way you get to stay out is when this life ends. So rest assured that will happen, but let's hope that's a long, long way from now.
So when you astral project, are you able to communicate or see your family that have passed on the other side?
Yes, in fact, that's one of the things that got me involved in it. My mother died when I was sick, and having been able to access her and talk to her and get some clarity on things, that's been extremely beneficial for me. That's one of the main reasons people turn to it, and it's also one of the main reasons people turn to a psychic as well.
Oh, really? So they're able to communicate. Okay, what happens if they astral project and they see somebody that they never really got along with?
Well, that's what happened to me the first time I astral projected. I was in military school working on this stuff, trying to figure out how to astral project, and I was a teenager in high school, stuck in military school, and I astral projected, and the first time I did it, I was with a guy who I couldn't stand. He was in military school. He was the guy I was getting in trouble. And there we were out after taps. After 10 p.m., you're supposed to be in bed. Suddenly I find myself out after taps, and we're hiding from the lieutenant colonel, who's very much into, getting people in trouble and reporting things that are wrong, and we're trying to hide from this guy so we don't get caught. He's one of the administrators, the lieutenant colonel who was at the school. And so there we are in this scenario where we're hiding and trying to dodge this guy, and I'm wondering, how the heck did I get out after taps? And so the next day I ran into this kid, and I said, who I never would have talked to normally because he was one of the kids to be avoided. He was a bit of a troublemaker. But I said, what did you dream about last night? He said, I dreamt about you. And I said, well, tell me some more. He said, well, we were out after taps, and Colonel Brzezinski was about to catch us, and we were hiding behind the bus. And I said, wow, that's exactly what I dreamt. So that's when I realized I was onto something. And to answer your question, yes, you can run into people you don't want to associate with. And I don't know if there's much of a way to control that, except surround yourself with protective light so you block out negativity. But just like in the real world, you go to the shopping center and you may run into people you don't want to run into. You just never know.
Now, I had seen something that you had written about people astral project for healing and suppose a medical doctor wants to astral project to contact, say, brilliant doctors on the other side to maybe get some information on healing or on medicine. Can they do that?
Yeah, absolutely. I would hope that the doctors, before they passed on, kind of just wrote that down for the rest of us. But I think that if you wanted to gain some insight, if there's somebody's research you weren't able to access and you wanted to save some time and they hadn't reincarnated yet, you have to realize that the people can go back into another body and start another lifetime. But assuming they were still in that interim period between bodies, then they could be accessed, absolutely.
Okay, so then this brings me to another question. So then if you astral project because you want to see your loved ones who have passed on, but if they have decided to reincarnate, if that is possible, then they won't be there, right?
Right, exactly. Unless they happen to be, they will already have taken on a new personality, a new life, and they probably won't even recognize you unless, at that point you have to go up a level in management. You'd have to go up to what's called the oversoul, which would be their actual self that directs their soul, but that gets a little bit advanced. It's best to catch them before they reincarnate.
Well, what dimension is astral projection?
Well, in metaphysics, we call it the fourth dimension. Of course, Einstein kind of grabbed that term fourth dimension. That's what he liked to call time, because, we have length, width, and height. He said, well, another dimension you need to consider is time. That's arguable whether or not that's a dimension, but it works for math and science. It makes things easier. So in the physics world, we have the fourth dimension as time. In the metaphysical world, we have fourth dimension as the astral world.
But how do they know that?
How does who know what?
How do you know that astral projection is in the fourth dimension? How do you know that?
It's just an arbitrary name. You can call it the 10th dimension if you want. There's no, there are no street signs or anything saying 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and so on. It's just a name. Just like we know clouds are in the sky, we came up with this word sky, and that's where the clouds are.
Okay, so what you can do here in your physical body or earth, you can also do in the astral realm, correct?
Well, not exactly. I mean, there are a lot of limitations in the astral realm. You wouldn't be able to, drive a car or lift weights.
Okay, what about sex?
Well, astral sex is something we cover in the program, very hot topic, if you will, pardon the pun, and it's something that you can do. You have to realize that there are pros and cons to that. The pros are you can get closer to the person than you can in the physical world. A lot of times lovers wish that, they say to each other, well, I wish I could just crawl inside your body, I wish I could be part of you. And in the astral world, that's much more possible. Now, of course, you're not going to have the physical parts of you in the astral world as they exist in the three-dimensional world. So, for example, you will not be making a baby in the astral world, that kind of thing.
So if somebody has a crush on someone and they're still out there in that other dimension, they can get together with them? So would the other person have to accept them? Or is everybody...
It's just like in everyday life. We have people who go places they're not invited, who do things they're not invited to do. So this can be misused, of course. You don't have to have consent, but of course you morally absolutely should, I say, in every case. This is something to be done between two consenting people, not between someone who has a crush on somebody and someone who doesn't want anything to do with that person. Just like anything else, it can be used inappropriately, but I advise, of course, never doing that.
So when somebody astral projects and they go into this other realm, what is the first thing that you've had the experience, so what is the first thing that you see when you go into this astral realm? What do you see? Are you thinking of going to a specific location? Is that why you're doing it?
Well, okay, to answer your second question first, are you thinking of a specific location? It depends. Some people are just, wandering around. They just want to see what it's like. Most people do have an itinerary. They have a place they want to go. And as far as what you see first, that really depends on where you go. A typical experience will be, let's say you just get your astral head out of your physical head. And so you're just kind of popping out into the astral world, kind of looking around. Well, one thing you're going to realize right away is you no longer only have vision in the front. You now have vision all the way around, 360 degrees. So that's one thing you're going to notice right away. You're able to see all around, all at once. And also, you're not necessarily seeing the things in the physical world. You're seeing things in the astral world. Now, you can view the physical world also. But it's kind of like looking up at the surface of something while being underwater. Think of it as being in a pool at a resort. You can look out of the water and see the building, or you can focus on what's in the pool itself. So you do have the option of seeing the physical world or focusing on the astral world.
What is beyond the astral world? Is there anything beyond?
You'd have to check in with the practitioners of Ekankar for that. I think they're still around. I'm not sure. But beyond that, we're talking about higher vibratory rates. The reason your astral body isn't in the physical three-dimensional world is because it's at a higher vibratory rate. It's got much more energy, and so you can keep increasing that if you want to go up to higher dimensions. If you want to go to higher levels.
Oh, wait a minute.
So beyond.
Wait a minute. You mean you can go into a higher level in astral projection?
Yes, absolutely.
What? Okay, so if you're saying that it's fourth dimension, what happens when you go to the other steps higher? What happens to each other level?
Well, I haven't been too terribly high in the dimensions myself, but from what I understand from talking to those who have done it, you have different types of people there. You have, the more advanced yogis there. I kind of popped in and popped out. It's not really a place where I spend a lot of time. People who are very, very much into spirituality, I'm talking about full time into it, you'd find them there. You'd also find different structures there. As you go up in dimensions, the structures change as well. So these are the types of differences that you would notice as you go up the scale. It's sort of like grades in school. In high school, you're going to find one type of student. In college, another. At a master's level, another. Doctoral level, another. Postdoc, another. It's sort of like that.
All right. So in this astral projectual realm, the people that you see are, like you said, are maybe your relatives or your friends. Suppose you want to see somebody way back in Jesus Christ's time. Suppose you want to see the apostles.
The what? I'm sorry?
The apostles. Is that possible to do that?
Yeah, through accessing what I mentioned earlier, which is the Akashic records, the record of everything that has happened and potentially will happen. That gets into something more advanced. I also have a program for Akashic records, but you can, through astral projection, you can access the Akashic records as well. You don't have to do it through astral projection. It's unlikely that, it seems unlikely at least, that science is going to develop a time machine that moves backwards in time, even though it is possible. But I think they're realizing now it's going to take a tremendous amount of energy, and we don't understand energy in the physical world that well yet in order to do that. So I don't think we're going to see it in our lifetimes. But if you want a quick and easy tour, you can just go to the astral world and access the Akashic records. So
Steve, who came across this astral projection? Who's the one that started this?
Well, I don't know if anyone started it. It's just something that's been a part of us since very possibly I was going to say the beginning of time, but I really don't think that time did begin. And to answer your question more directly, I have absolutely no idea.
Yeah, that's interesting. I think because of that movie Insidious last year, people have become more aware of astral projection. And that's why we wanted to present this show tonight. Let's see. Any questions? I have a YouTube chat. Is there any questions from the YouTube chat? Anybody have a question? Yes, I can see the comments. Does anybody have a question? Okay, I'm waiting to see if anybody has a question. We're on a slight delay. Okay, I want to ask you another question, Steve. Okay, some people have attachments. I don't know if you're aware of that or not, but some people have attachments. So if somebody is into the negativity here on Earth and they have an attachment and they astral project, will that attachment go with them in the astral realm?
Well, it's up to the attachment. Are you talking about just an entity attachment?
Yes.
Okay. Some entities have cognitive abilities and some do not. So some may not have the choice. They may just kind of be acting in a parasitic way. In those cases, I would say yes, it would go with the person. In the program that I teach and in most programs that I'm aware of, they completely avoid that by just using the protective light surrounding the individual, which makes that no longer happen. So if someone is in that sort of situation, then more often than not, the entity would go with the actual astral body.
All right. So if this entity does go with the astral body, is there a way that they can confront that entity and tell them to stay away from them or to detach themselves from themselves?
Well, you're getting into a specialty called exorcism, which is something that I am not a specialist at. I was in a TV show called Door to the Dead, where I had to not really do an exorcism, but I had to hypnotize someone to get in touch with the spirit, and then we had the exorcism expert come in and take it from there. So this is kind of where my knowledge ends, and then we get into a different specialty.
Oh, I was just wondering if this entity followed them into the astral realm, if they could confront that entity and find out who it is. I'm sure they could find out who it is and what do they want from them.
Well, absolutely. I mean, once you're in the astral world, you can just look at them, and if it's a person they know, then they would recognize them. But if for some reason it's not someone who's obvious, then they could confront them. I believe they would always have that option.
Okay. Well, I don't see any questions. Nobody has typed in any questions. So I don't have any more for you, and I know we have a lot of viewers, but I don't see any questions for you, Steve. Is there anything you'd like to add?
Well, can I share the resource, the training program that we have?
Sure.
Okay. The training program is about astral projection, and it's available at theartofastralprojection.com. Again, that's theartofastralprojection.com. And to learn more about me, Steve G. Jones, just go to my website, which is just my name, stevegjones.com.
Well, Steve, I want to thank you so much for joining us tonight. It was really a pleasure to speak with you, and it's very nice to meet you. And I have checked out your website, and I did see some of your videos, and I had a lot of fun watching the Millionaire Matchmaker.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, I was on another show on Bravo called Below Deck that came out a few days ago. It was about millionaires vacationing around the world, and I was the millionaire that week, and they just filmed my friends and I having fun. So.
Oh, wow. I'll have to check that out on Bravo. Steve, thank you so much. Thanks, Steve. It was a pleasure to have you on the show. Thank you so much.
Same here, anytime. Thank you.
Thanks, Steve. Good night.
Good night.
Good night. Okay, everybody, thanks so much for joining us. Hope you enjoyed the show on astral projection. I know have had a lot of questions answered that I've had. And please, everyone, if you would please subscribe to the channel and please give us a like. We'd really appreciate it. Now, next Thursday, the show is going to be on ITC water images, which is something that is a topic I absolutely love. And my guest will be Margaret Downing, and she has a lot of information to share with us on water ITC images and her EVPs that she does along with her ITC images. So everyone, I guess that's going to conclude the show for tonight. Please, again, don't forget to subscribe and give us a like. We'd really appreciate it. So everyone, good night, and thank you so much for joining me. I'll see you next Thursday. Good night. Thank you.